Hello, I'm Corey Goode, and thank you for tuning in to the Sphere Being Alliance YouTube channel. Today, I'm bringing you a conversation that I recently had with Mike Waskosky. Stacy is in the background a little bit, but we were discussing the Law of One and the Blue Avians, which is a topic of our new course. If you want to go to blueavians.com, or you can go to ascensionworks.tv to find this course. It's going to be amazing, as you will see after watching this video. So anyway, the video turned out so well that I went ahead and had Stephen Cefalo edit in some of his beautiful art from the graphic novel and other B-roll and even some nugget little footage that Stacy found. So hopefully you enjoy this. Please go ahead and click the like button right now and enjoy this off-the-cuff conversation that was never really meant to be published, but it turned out very cool. You'll see. It's December 19th, 2020. We are discussing topics for the Blue Avians and the Law of One course. Corey Goode and Mike Waskosky.
So my original discussion ideas for the outline of the course. I had a bunch of subpoints, but if you look at this, there was week 1 through 5 are 5 different pages here that we can take notes on if we want. And I was also thinking that as we're talking about things, we can be thinking a little bit about how they could fit into the different weeks of the course. And then we can totally change what I set up as the headings for the weeks. But in general, this made the most sense to me that the first week would be an overview of the basics, the very, very basics of your testimony and of the nature of Ra and the nature of the universe and the nature of oneness and what's most important and the Blue Avian message, and try to explain that a little bit.
Setting the groundwork, because a lot of people may not be familiar with the Law of One. So maybe we need to tell them what the Law of One is.
Right, exactly.
Then the basics of my testimony, like you're saying, and then how they tie together.
And how this is all the most important thing that we've been working on, the Blue Avian message, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, and then the second week, I was thinking, I called it on the website the Grand Spiritual Experiment and Local ET Confederation. And
kind of perfect timing right now with that news from Israel.
Which news?
The one about the Galactic Federation.
Oh yes. So I was thinking it'd be important to explain. Corey's being contacted by a large group of beings, and this is all the stuff they've been doing. They've been genetically modifying us, and but there's this larger picture to the evolution where the densities are pulling each other upward, and that's what we're a part of, and that's what they're trying to help us with. But they're all these different beings, and we could give kind of a grand overview from that, almost like the Star Trek perspective of all the things that happen to you, also that would be related to the Confederation, like the meetings with the beings that you had, and the confederations. Was there 2 confederations? There was the Galactic Confederation or the Council of Saturn?
There's the Super Federation.
Super Federation.
That is made up of hundreds of different other types of federations and councils and stuff.
Super Federation.
Yeah.
And so the one that you were on the contributing as an intuitive empath on, what were those? Was that the same thing?
That was the Super Federation.
So how many beings were in the room at the same time?
It was I think 90 different seating areas or so. I think I overheard, but it was a lot. It was a lot. And then there was area where people that weren't seated members, but were there to observe and contribute, would stand all around the back. There was room for a lot more, but there was usually, I think, around up to 90 different groups. Sometimes during the meetings, not all the seats were full.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't always all of the federations meeting together.
So the Law of One references a number that's there's a confederation with 53 representing the local area in our galaxy, like 53. Do you think that is the same one, and maybe it's a bigger number?
Well, I don't.
They said the 4th through 6th density. I wonder if there could be
The super federation. They deal with more than just our local star cluster.
Okay.
And the super federation, all these, from all over the place, these ET groups come together to meet.
Okay, that makes sense.
Super federation.
Yeah. I also wonder if there are. Well, first of all, my first question is, and this is a question I've had for you for many years, actually, relating to some of these distinctions, the different natures of the confederations. There's confederations that are just certain regional confederations. Do you know anything about that? That's a common.
That's regional. That's what the super federation is. It's all these different regional federations.
Okay, the regionals get together.
Smaller federations, of like maybe 5 groups or whatever. These groups send one representative to be at a seat at this big super federation.
Mm-hmm. So there are some of these federations.
This big super federation is to try to prevent all of these different groups from stepping on each other's shit. On all these programs going on. It's to help kind of be a governing body.
Very interesting. And would you see these as mostly 4th density federations, or mostly 4th and 5th?
And 5th.
5th.
Yeah, but nothing above that.
Okay.
They were shocked when the Blue Avians appeared. They were like...
Yeah. When was the first time that you were... so at the Lunar Operations Command, was that when they were shocked then? Or are you talking about a different meeting? So that this was much later?
There was one of the Super Federation meetings.
Yeah.
One of the last ones where the Blue Avians appeared and started speaking through me, addressing them.
So basically, they didn't know that you were about to do that? The Blue Avians were about to do that?
No, they knew.
They knew. They're just amazed.
They were still amazed. As amazed to see them as we would be to see the Super Federation people.
I see. Yeah. Very fascinating.
Because these are like the guardians, that they hear about, that have been talked about for eons.
And do you think, this is something that I find very funny, do you think that the reason that they would want a 3rd density being representing themselves, the 6th density being wants the 3rd density being representing them, instead of, say, a 4th or 5th density being representing them, because of how humbling it would be for the other beings to see how lowly of a person is capable of being the messenger?
Well, that, and if you want 3rd density beings to break out of this worship complex, you don't send an angelic being.
Oh, right, exactly.
You send, a being on their same level, and a being that has gone through their same 3rd density experience. Because 4th density beings, their way of thinking is so divorced from ours that they have. It's like us trying to sit there. We're watching our dog, and we're like, I bet they're thinking this. Yeah. It's that big of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I forget what we're originally on here, but I guess I mainly wanted to talk about that. So week 2 would be. Maybe I should ask one more question on that point. So you said that there are different federations that are part of the Super Federation. Some of them
federations and councils, and
some of them might be like one solar system or one star system, or they're always more than that.
Each seat is for one of these federations, and those federations can be made up of anywhere from like maybe a handful to hundreds or more civilizations.
Civilizations. Yeah. Wow. And so there's none that are like so outsiders that they're just kind of like one race by themselves. One.
Well, I really don't know. I mean. When the different times I went there, the times were so far apart that, and this meeting is happening outside of time. So some of these beings, actually, they're not flying to our solar system to go into this little anomaly and join our party and then fly out and then leave our solar system. They have this exact same anomaly in their solar system. All of them do. And they fly into this anomaly, and they all appear in the same place. I don't even know how to describe it.
Huh.
It is like a space-time bubble that that's why you have to enter it and leave it from the same exact coordinates, because if you don't, you'll pop up in someone else's solar system. It could be in another galaxy, so it's kind of like the fairy ring thing. You got to go in and out of the same bubble. But this time and in this galaxy, it's so divorced from our time bubble that it might as well be from ancient aliens groups or whatever. They're popping in not only out of space, but out of different times than ours. And they're popping into this spherical null zone where they can have these meetings as long as they want, and it has no effect on the timeline, and then they can re-enter.
It bothers me. It's just like we're in a giant brain, and there's just like it's just like all the neurons, and it's just like there's probably some larger reality that this universe came from that universe.
All of these experiences are just light dancing off of the neuron of the cosmic web, and the cosmic web are just neurons of the one infinite creator, basically. So.
Yeah. That is so much fun to talk about. Because you're saying things you've never said before, I think, in certain ways. It's like people just love this so much. It's like just have this perspective.
I will say things, but I think that I'm being more verbose than I am, and I'm giving more information. And then later on, I don't realize that I'm seeing it, the whole picture, but I described just a few things from the picture, and people just kind of have this different part of the mosaic they put together each time I give the information.
It's going to take a long time to record all of your testimony. And it's so dumb to me that no one's been seeing it. I mean, I feel like, you managed to scare people who were starting to see it. Yeah, but I do feel like, even we get attacked. I will say that. We definitely have ways of being attacked that have been messing with us, but we are very much in love, and we're very strong to help each other through all of our junk.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's good. Got to have a good partner in life.
Yeah. Okay, so the third week I was thinking we could talk more. We could get more into the nature of the Ascension subjects, because that's such a big subject.
Because in the week before we're describing that basically the one infinite creator wanted to understand duality, so it exploded into all of these distorted particles or ego bubbles that are us, and that the ascension process is to get back through all the different densities in that experience, and then we can feed into understanding what the higher self is, and the over self leading up into the one infinite creator.
That's good stuff.
And how when we're getting information or lessons from our higher self, it's us from the future in a higher density that have gone through, and they're helping us guide us to have learning experiences so that we can ascend quicker. But it all connects back to the one infinite creator, so it's all basically God, the one infinite creator, that is guiding each of our experiences.
And this is perfect stuff to integrate the law of one in your testimony. It's just so perfect. So do you feel like the Blue Avians gave you a sense of much of this, or most of this, or all of this? Is this where you're getting it from? All the Blue Avians? All of it. That's amazing.
Yeah. After I had that mind meld thing with RE, and then I started that was a catalyst, and then when I started having more and more meetings with the Blue Avians, their energy started affecting mine over time, and I started absorbing and it changed my vibration and consciousness to a point where I just understood. I understand oneness. I understand the cosmic web, the flow of energy and consciousness through it, how it works, how reality's held together. I could understand it.
That's powerful.
And I never would have been able to fully understand it prior to that. And I can talk about it all day. I understand it. When people bring in different topics, I immediately see the big picture all the way around the subject of how it applies to this greater, connectedness.
Yeah, that is very exciting, because like the law of one, the most interesting things to me in the law of one are where they give you little clues about the mysteries that they have challenged explaining, and so my biggest questions are around those areas, and the things that I just don't understand from the law of one. It's a little bit vague, and it just seems like when I hear it from you, it's like I'm getting the bigger picture. I'm getting a more coherent angle on it.
And it's weird. They wanted me to understand all of this information from the law of one and these higher densities without being reliant on the text and not being like, a person that knows it chapter and verse.
Yeah.
When I first read it, I couldn't absorb it.
Yeah. I'm going to definitely listen to that recording.
What recording?
This one that we're making.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to try to come up with categories based on what you said. Categories of things that we could say, this is how it definitely fits together. Look, here's in law of one, here's what Corey was shown.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be so great. Oh, gosh. And also, because I know people just love this kind of thing, just the nature of the fact that there's the Draco Reptilian Empire and there's the Galactic Federation.
Yeah, and the good analogy that we keep using is that in this Ascension experiment, there's a really interesting analogy with, it seems like the two adversaries, not equal, are the reptilians and the avians, Blue Avians. And what do avians or birds do? They ascend.
Right.
And what do reptiles do? They stay on the same level on their bellies their entire existence. So there's two different ways of ascension. And because of their nature, the way they're programmed, the reptilians are unable to spiritually ascend like their fine feathered friends, then they found a different way of ascension, and that was through technology and this AI stuff. And then, so these are these two big competing paths to ascension, or the technological, fake kind of ascension, canned ascension, and then the actual returning to one process.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing to hear it stated like that. Yeah, and that's a very beautiful. I mean, it very much is the same as the law of one explaining that basically, in order to evolve along the negative path, which anybody can do, you just have to block your heart completely and power up your orange and yellow energy centers. And eventually, your ability to see yourself as this powerful creator being becomes so strong that you can jump up to seeing yourself as God. And you begin to immediately see the full truth of everything because you efficiently used your lower energy centers. So it's like they chose to get stuck in lies about themselves. And because they believed the lies so strongly, they manifested the ascension for themselves.
Yeah. We're all manifesting our own little experiences within this wider consensus reality. All these competing realities.
This would make a good bonus thing for giving out to people if it turns out. Don't screw up too much. Yeah, this would be a great bonus content. Because I'm sure even when we're doing the course, you'll say it in a different way.
Yes.
And it'll come out. Yeah. Okay, so now that's kind of like a few major categories for week 2 that I was thinking we can put any important points from the Blue Avian testimony into there. Because like somehow I'm limited by thinking that Blue Avian testimony is like certain messages they gave you, but actually it's like the capacity to see the entire structure of the universe.
A different perspective.
Yeah, it's the perspective that really matters. Yeah.
I mean, I told you before, the Blue Avians told me that the law of one, when they set it down, if we were to see it as they did, I mean, like, if we would see it in its final state, like being set down as a book text, and you pick it up and you turn the pages, and it's this fairly third density kind of thing. When they set it down, they're almost seeing it as this sparkling, multi-dimensional, moving machine, a device that they're setting down in a timeline to affect the mass consciousness, and it affects people's minds multi-dimensionally. It's when you're reading the information, it's affecting people's consciousness, and it was put here as a tool during that time to give the boost that was needed to the mass consciousness and to reintroduce certain concepts. And since then, people have turned it into a religion and all kinds of other stuff, but it was seen as a very important tool. That's why when I look at it, I look at it differently. I don't see it as this just amazing text or almost biblical kind of reference material. I see it as a device that's just got all of these multi-dimensional facets to it that each time you visit it, you're going to have a different experience and draw something different, from it, depending on where your level of consciousness is and how it's blossomed since you began studying the material.
It's funny how even as you described it that way, it's almost like I have religious triggers within me that are still wanting to see it as some kind of elevated, thing.
Yeah.
And I just have to shift. And so,
well, you probably grew up like I did. I grew up doing Bible quizzing, So I mean, that kind of stuff is ingrained into our experience. Text takes on, it becomes canon. It becomes, it's how we're programmed from a very young age, sitting there for parents reading the Bible to us. The Bible's great. I'm not dissing it. I'm just saying that that's the way we're programmed. And that's the programming that's third density that we have to break. We have to get into the fourth density understanding, true understanding of we are everything and everything is us. And you change your perspective on not only your experience, but those around you. You're no longer the center of your own universe. You're all orbiting in the same universe finally.
Yeah, my mind wandered there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff for me to process still. And so I think definitely week one, that would be a good time to mention that, as we're talking about the law of one in general. Just do not take this as a religion. So the third week, I was thinking, is the one where we start to get to the nature of ascension and the nature of the harvest in the law of one, and how it's not. Well, basically, the transition.
We also need to talk about the law of one coming through Carla's distortions.
Yeah.
How she was a Christian and how a lot of the concepts that they communicate with are through Christianity. Mm-hmm. And we need to also connect, how I asked them about why they like to work through people who are Christians so much. And they said that we had the right vibration, but most importantly, we knew how to live by faith.
That is great. Yeah. And I've actually I feel like I'm becoming more Christian than ever before. It's like we actually were just at a church function where they give us a little award because we're the people they know are talking to the interfaith crowd.
It'd be interesting also in this, maybe even if you talked about it, about how do you balance that kind of stuff? If you still want to be a Christian or a Buddhist or whatever, and that's your chosen religion, how do you balance that with the concepts from, the law of one? And how do you start opening your mind to some of the concepts like we've talked about, the nature of Christ, the Christ consciousness, and these end times compared to what we kind of were programmed through our religions.
Yeah.
That might be kind of some interesting stuff to talk about.
A little bit of Jesus in there.
Sprinkle a little Jesus on there. A little bit.
And I have to say that every single one of my Law of One presentations, I've like had a voice screaming at me. You have to let the Christians see that you care about Jesus at the start of each of these, because it's such a big deal. It's such a big deal. Yeah. Yeah, and that's how it bothers me. Like that's how the entire, the community turning against you started, was because of the audio recording of you talking about how the name of Jesus is what got you able to be clean.
Yeah, from those entity attachments.
Yeah.
And that was because of my programming. I was raised as a Christian. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Bill Ryan had the programming to be so anti-Jesus that he had to stomp the whole thing down.
Yeah.
And he tried without the name of Jesus first.
Didn't work.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
It has to do with your will, will. And that was where I drew the power, from. It all goes back to our programming.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So, I still have family. It's like I'm afraid that they'll find out what I really believe. It's like I just gotta kind of let it go.
Yeah, it's kind of out there. I mean, a good part of my family's not real excited about what I'm talking about. They don't think it's Christian, and it's pretty bad.
But maybe if you made a good video explaining how this is.
They are the types that are. The Earth is 6,000 years old. Anything that you're seeing, it's either angels or demons, most likely demons.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Even the devil can appear as an angel of light. And he's here. He's very deceitful, and all that. So
well, I have a pretty good testimony around that because I was doing the CE5s and I was like falling away from Christianity. And it's like, well, how the heck do I have any respect for Christianity right now? And then I was under the stars, and it was when I was thinking about Jesus. Do you guys? I was like filled with love, like the love that they have for Jesus was coming to me. And then these lights in the sky started flashing at me. It's like, yes, we love Jesus. We love Jesus. And it's like that can't be a demon. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm. With the Blue Avians, I challenged the spirits, and they bowed at the mention. Yeah. So, there's power in a lot of the different religions. I mean, it's, there's truth and understanding of the one infinite creator in all of them. And we are very spiritual beings that we don't really understand how much power we can pull from our religious faith. Our beliefs. And that's one of the reasons that these deep state people want to destroy religion and faith. They want everyone to have the same belief.
Yeah, we can get back on subject. I should have a clock in front of me too. Make sure we cover it's 4:30, so you can go for a while longer. Definitely another hour and a half. Probably fine. Because the going back to other things, because the Ascension is such a big deal for people to have some sense of what this actually means, because everyone is so on a different page about Ascension. Yeah,
no one can be on the same page.
Yeah.
Because of our distortions and the way we view and understand things through our religious beliefs and programming. Yeah. It's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. But hopefully we can at least decrease distortions for people to a certain degree and try to say this is what the law
just having
says.
The major thing is just having people understand that they have distortions and recognize what your distortions are. And then, if you know that, information is kind of twisting or spinning in this direction because of your distortions, you can begin to start to account for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're, conscious of your distortions. And that's one of the hardest things, getting past ego, to look at yourself and recognize your own distortions. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. I was definitely thinking we could cover what the Law of One says about harvest, and say how that could possibly fit with what you were shown about what's coming, and how we still stay on the same planet, and that we're having to work out all of our stuff, but this is going to be a totally different way of working out our stuff. It's going to be a little bit more awesome when the mind control grid is down and that kind of thing. And then the actual ascension process is a thing that takes hundreds of years to get to, but also at the same time, there's an effect that is immediately going to be forcing a decision for people whether or not they want to embrace this new energy with the service to self or service to others perspective.
Well, that's going to take hundreds of years for people to even get there. The masses, they're going to be thrown into turmoil.
Okay.
And then they're going to have to kind of understand what's going on, that, we think different, we're connected on a different level, deal with their own karma and shit to be able to interact with people on that level. And it's not, there's not going to be a flash in the sky, and then everyone's on the same level. It's going to be a process that takes about 1,000 years.
Yeah. A lot of different gradations of activation, but would you say at that point we're fourth density?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I assume
fourth density confused.
Fourth density confused. Yeah. So I feel like at one point when we were at your dinner table, we were talking about the idea that on that day of the solar events, or at least the final last big solar push, there's going to be a massive shift in the way people immediately start to see things, or at least a massive capacity to see things differently. And that's because of the mind control grid coming down, right?
Well, no, it's because of right now, we all have within a few feet of our body or whatever magnetic fields. The Earth has its magnetic field, and it's all at a certain resonant frequency right now. When the sun explodes and its electromagnetic field and all of these other energies blast outward, they overtake the field of the Earth. They overtake our individual fields, and they kind of change their spin, change their frequency, and then they don't go back. And that frequency is what we call fourth density. And that causes us to all of a sudden, it's a real confusing time, because like people who are married, I've talked about, before, they're going to get real confused because all of a sudden they're connecting with other people on this real deep kind of emotional level. And they still have their third density programming that says, oh, flip the switch, that's sex, that's this, that's, oh, you're falling in love, or this. But it's going to be very confusing because we're going to be connecting to all of these different people when we've always been kind of stuck more in a tighter knit ego bubble. And it's going to be very confusing when we start connecting with all these people. So it kind of starts out like that, and in the beginning it's going to be chaos.
So would you say that we're like a certain percentage into that kind of an energy already, and that like there's a massive amount, a percentage higher is what we're going to step into with the solar flash? Yeah, it kind of, the energy is already has been coming from the sun since the 1930s. So this change has been in our consciousness has been occurring since the 1930s. And then they introduced the Law of One and did other little things here and there to kind of tinker and make things, mix in and make a good recipe. So I kind of got off topic. What were we? We're talking about the basically what happens on the day of the solar flash.
Yeah, the day of the solar flash, it makes that total flip into that 100% into that energy. Right now, we're dealing with an oscillation kind of since the 30s coming from the sun. It was weak and it's getting stronger and stronger, and then it weakens again, and it's like a pulse.
Mm-hmm.
And that pulse is just getting stronger and stronger to where the pulse just boom, it's this resonant, it's the new resonant frequency. And that happens during the solar event.
Yeah, that is a wonderful explanation. Yeah, and I feel like on some level that is what the harvest means in the Law of One. That at this point now it's time, because they basically describe it'll be easier before the shift for people to work on their stuff than after the shift. And I have to find that quote. That was a really good quote. So I think that kind of indicates what that was too.
Yeah, people will be in kind of chaos in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. So we could also go through the process of the transition period, I was thinking, where we're all the things that humanity will have to go through with the
playing with their own genetics and all of that during that 1,000-year period.
Yeah.
And how we will segregate ourselves. The people who've been in doing the spiritual work and expanding their consciousness through these concepts will have a difficult time, but it'll be they'll come together in these very large communities and work with each other to grow and learn how to use these new abilities and way of thinking, segregating themselves, pulling themselves out of all of the chaos of the majority that are just freaking crazy, trying to, everyone just they go nuts. All of a sudden you can almost read each other's minds. It's almost on that level. And you can feel other people's feelings, the uncomfortable intuitive empaths that are out there know the feeling that everyone's going to have it. It's going to be that feeling amplified.
And it can't possibly be called fear porn if we don't already want to live in the mountains.
Oh, no, I'm all about the hopium. All about the hopium.
Yeah, it'll be great to go out in the mountains.
Hey, man, we were told to move here for a reason. And we did.
Yeah. And I was also thinking maybe some more spiritual stuff we could probably fit into this third week if we want, because of the fact that we need to talk about how to be ready spiritually for what's happening. So maybe we could end with that kind of thing too.
Yeah, we have to, I guess, discuss this the Christ consciousness energy coming in, and how it's not how our religions have described. It's not someone on a horse with a sword coming in to judge us. That it's an energy that forces us to judge ourselves. Mm-hmm. And who better else to judge us anyway, because we are the one infinite creator. We are God anyway, who forgot what we are. So why not judge ourselves anyway? Because we're the ones that are going to have to go through the next incarnation, and so it's a very personal thing, the judgment. And this energy forces people into these really, I've described it as like a narcissistic little bubble, to where all they can think about is their own shit, and they're a victim and all this other stuff. And what I've been told by the Anshar is that bubble is kind of a gift. It's an opportunity for people to be forced to look at their own shortcomings, distortions, traumas, and deal with them. Because each trauma, insecurities are tied to traumas, but each one of those emotional scars has mass. All energy has mass. And within your light body and your body itself, mass builds up from these distortions and traumas. And we need to have worked on it for two reasons. When this blast comes through, all of these undealt with traumas that are like little energetic scars in your body, the energy can't pass through them. So it causes friction and it causes agitation. And well, it's basically, for both reasons are the same. It's to, when the energy flows in, it forces people, to look at their own issues, and that people really can't handle that, But people are the people that can't handle it are the ones that are developing this end times madness. So that little narcissistic bubble of victimhood and all of your issues that everyone's stuck in right now, it is a catalyst that's either going to throw you into the introspective dealing with your shit, because the only way out of that bubble is through, or it's if you are just too narcissistic or too unable to face all of your demons, then you just go mad, and you get more and more mad the more and more these energies come in. And when the energies pop at the final event, people just go apeshit. End time madness.
Wow. Yeah, we're fortunate to know ahead of time to be able to.
We've been talking about this. Our, ignorance is bliss to a certain degree. Everything, all this intel I get about stuff going on with the government, this information I get from these beings and these programs. When you start, it's one thing to hear it and then deliver the information, but when you start seeing it unfold in the news and around you, it's even more freaky for me than it is people out there going, "Oh, Corey said that in 2015."
Right.
Because I was shown some serious shit. I was shown a series of events, and when I see them unfolding, I'm like, oh my God, do we have enough time between now and this solar event to do the preparation that I do want to do? Do we have the time? It's the question, because it scares the crap out of me.
Yeah. And you've got that in my consciousness much more now too, since I started talking to you earlier this year. Definitely, I am not as optimistic as all my friends want to be about what's about to happen right now, but I feel like I'm going to be very happy to surf the energies by being ready for them. Some pretty good analogy a friend was using. You just gotta accept them and love them for what they are, and just surf them, just ride the wave.
Yeah.
Because it really is ultimately what's going to be helping everyone spiritually the most. And without having this massive push of energy, we would be stuck in this lower vibration forever. So we want this. We definitely always wanted this spark of energy, and people just have to see it that way. This is clearly what I wanted. So it's people hating the health system right now, people hating the government. It's like all this hatred for the authority systems because they felt like they had to give over their power and not just stand in it.
Yeah, everyone's in a victimhood mentality triggered by their insecurities and traumas. It's what I've discussed, the Anshar fourth density beings. I asked them, what do you see us like, animals? When you come down to visit, or you like flying down to, tag a rhino or something like that? And they're like, no. We basically see y'all as very close to the same, but kind of as if when you would visit a third world country, there's a lot of desperation and trauma and suffering, and they see us as all mentally traumatized, mentally ill, but they don't see themselves that much, they don't see themselves as these magnificent higher beings than us, the fourth density positive beings.
Yeah.
So, mainly what we need to do is just deal with our traumas and that sort of thing, what our last class was about.
Yeah, it's almost like, I want to cover some of that in this class too, because it's like, it really is what people most need to hear, these kinds of things, because whatever it is they're seeking right now, it's like, it's related to their karma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always what's going to blow up in their faces until they finally look inward and question it.
Breaking cycles. It's learning to recognize. Yeah, that was all in our last course, and we can pull little pieces from the last course and maybe reference it, and have people go back to the other course.
Yeah,
that we're going to do a discount on.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that was covered. That covers week 3. So I was thinking maybe week 3 and week 4 could be overlapping a little bit. With week 4 being something I was thinking we could talk about the Anshar more, and although part of me wanted this to be more focused on.
It's us from the future anyway.
Yeah. Part of me wanted it to be more focused on the Blue Avian testimony, because there's a lot of that would be very fascinating to get to. So I feel like maybe I want to put more of that into some of these days too.
And we can see it as the Blue Avians information is guiding us to fourth density, and the Anshar are an example. Yeah. That they are wanting us to see, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it was clear that it's like your educational process was clearly orchestrated by the Blue Avians to be working with the Anshar, right? Mm-hmm. And to be working with the Secret Space Program Alliance, and to be working with Alliance people on the Earth. Mm-hmm. It's like all these all contribute
on many layers.
Yeah,
it's like a big dance.
Yeah, that's. There's so many subjects there that I can ask you about, but maybe we'll have Q&A time. Maybe I'll get the first dibs at Q&A during the courses. That would be great. There's so many different nuances to this. The Anshar. What can we expect in fourth density? I think if we say what can we expect in fourth density, that always gives it the very positive, hopeful message that it needs to have.
The Anshar are just the end result of us getting to fourth density, and they are way up in fourth density. They're not on the lower layers.
Yeah.
So
hearing more about their experience, and I actually suspect that they're not even on the highest levels of fourth density. They're because of the fact that the Law of One says that the lifespans are 90,000 years, and you said their lifespans are like 900 or
just under 1,000. But it's because they choose it that way.
They choose it that way.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's because of people on Earth have the normal maximum lifetime is 900 years. That's what Ra talks about too. Yeah. It's like 65,000 years ago, our lifespans were 600 years.
Yeah.
So maybe there's some genetic similarity in that.
Yeah. Could also have to do with the firmament or whatever being there and protecting from radiation.
That would make a lot of sense if that's just what the Earth is tuned to, as beings of these physical complexes that last that long, because they do kind of make a connection. This is totally corroborating testimony. The connection between the energy that's coming in to the energy that's coming in through the magnetic field system, and how we've twisted it with our consciousness, and the twisting of that energy that's coming in is providing an environment where everyone is dying sooner, and that dying sooner process.
That environment is what actually creates time to begin with.
Yeah.
It's gravity and electromagnetic fields from gravity, gravitational fields are the engine of time. Outside of gravity, you have no experience of time whatsoever.
The fifth week, I was thinking, then we can kind of cover everything else in your testimony that we want, which would be the nature of how we've kind of been enslaved, and how we need to be breaking free from that, and how disclosure was a part, could be a very big part of that, and how everything going on in the secret space programs is going to be handed over to us, like how that is going to make our future way more amazing, make it more like a Star Trek reality.
Yep. Yeah. That the Star Trek infrastructure is already out there, that it will be handed over to us, basically.
Yeah.
And not only that, after the solar flash event, we are
then going to be in control of our own genetic and consciousness experiment. Those two parts of the experiment that the Super Federation are doing, they're tinkering with our genetics to cause us to evolve physically, and then they're tinkering with our consciousness to grow us spiritually or expand our consciousness at the same, kind of the same time.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, maybe we could talk about your experience with the Draco, if there's any value in that. But there's so many different parts of your testimony that I was really fascinated by. So, for example, when you said that you had when you were actually facing the reptilian, you felt more like a Blue Avian was steering your energy somehow, right?
Yeah, because I wasn't terrified like I would typically be seeing something like that. There was a kind of a little bit of, I was scared, but there was an energetic, like, booster shot I was being given.
Have you ever felt anything like that else when you were in their presence?
In whose presence?
The Blue Avians?
Oh, dude, yeah.
Nothing?
No.
Oh, it is totally like that.
No, it is different. When you're in their presence, it's kind of like, some people, they have an aura that's just a few feet from their body, and some people fill a room, and you walk in and you can just feel their energy. Imagine that just amplified beyond, anywhere within 1,000 feet of them, you're in their field, and it's a very, I don't know how to describe it, but you feel love, you feel excitement, you feel high, from the endorphins. It's very, but you feel somewhat not fully in your body. You feel expanded, like you're expanding out of your body, and kind of merging with that energy. It's kind of almost like it's trying to pull you out of your body, but something's trying to keep you in it. But in all directions, it's trying to expand you into it.
Yeah.
And then the energy, and then after you're back, either in your body or back here physically, however they interact with you that time, your energy's changed. It's their energy affects your energy. It's like, if you have a strong field and a weak field, and you apply that strong field to the weaker field will change to that polarity.
I could see how it would have been so tempting for beings to directly be in contact with humanity going back many thousands of years to try to boost them. And like Ra says, when they were in their presence, the Egyptians started treating them like gods, and then they immediately reverted into making that a religion where they're controlling people.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense that this experience would be a natural one in the presence of some of these beings. But it's just we don't know how to handle it yet as a culture.
We are distortions.
Yeah.
They bring in this, new information, and it passes through 7 billion different distortions. And then those 7 billion different distortions cluster into all these different realities of their own. And and then those can take on a life of their own, each reality, depending on the distortions or cultures. It's very complicated.
Yeah.
And them coming down even to give us the law of one, or to come down and pass during Egypt, was very risky, because they're coming down and they don't, they're like putting down this beautiful information, and it goes through cheese graters, and they have to hope that it gets put together or lumped together in a good way on the other side of the grater.
Right.
Cheese grater.
It's all people's personal distortions.
That's all our distortions are. That's how we accept information. It's through our distortions.
Yeah.
And our distortions are our parents' distortions, because as we've discussed, when we're children, we naturally look for someone to brain pattern after, someone who's admirable or has admirable traits, and then we just really absorb them and their distortions, and then we take those with us. So it's really, when it comes down to our ego, what is it? Who are we? It's like we were talking about earlier, it's an acting role that we feel like this is what I am, so therefore I must act this way. That's my role, our egos, and it's just a big illusion of separation from the one.
Yeah, that's been very powerful for me, as I've had increasingly seemingly transcendent experiences where it's like, how can I possibly be upset at anyone when I get in that state? It's just like immediately, it's like, yes, this is just a beautiful gift to have a reflection of myself. Like, it's usually like, if I'm triggered by anything emotionally, it's always the deepest subconscious thing that I haven't worked on yet that I need to look at. Yeah.
That's the whole point of the end time madness, or the people with the triggers that are occurring in everyone. Everyone's triggered and behaving very bizarrely. Each of those triggers is basically their higher self saying, give them a slap, say, look at this, but they can't look past the trigger and they can't turn inwardly.
Yeah.
So the people, they're going mad.
All right. So we've talked for about an hour. I would like to transition now to going through the entirety of the references. Well, at least I've got little highlights. I'm not going to go through absolutely everything that you said, but the highlights that I think might be interesting to see if we can question more about what has happened to you over the history of your testimony, because there's so many interesting nuggets that you might have just forgotten about because you haven't rewatched Cosmic Disclosure all the way, have you? Mm-mm. Did you watch it once? Probably.
I never even watched it.
Never even watched it.
No.
Wow.
I would watch little pieces of it here and there, but I didn't like watching myself.
That's amazing. So do you think there could have been things you were kind of like channeling during the show and you kind of just forgot about now because you don't normally think about it?
It's possible.
Yeah, well, at least it feels like you always have the answer to that. It's just the way we index information. It's so interesting how, there are even like, CE5 contact experiences that me and Elizabeth realized that one of us, we both remember experiencing together, but one of us doesn't remember it because we remember other details so much from those experiences. So that is a very interesting phenomenon. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I just want to go through starting with the beginning and ask you about your what happened to you with the Blue Avians, and make sure that there's nothing really, really amazing here that hasn't been talked about yet, because that's always the best. That's always the best when something comes up. So in the second Cosmic Disclosure episode, you said that you had been in contact with them for a while, but it was more of a personal nature, and for 4 years, I think you said. So 4 years before 2014 would have been 2010, 2011?
2011.
And do you remember the very first time? So it was through dreams initially,
for a while. And sometimes I would have very vivid dreams to where they would just be there observing. And it's almost, the dreams were like scenes, almost like, Scrooge, with the ghost of Christmas past and Christmas future and all of that, where I wasn't being taken, I was just being shown scenes and dreams. And then I would see them looking at me to like drive it home, or to like they were looking at my reaction, kind of a thing. Like they were looking at me like I was third party, looking into a scene they were creating. And they were dreams, and they were different scenes from my life.
Wow. So
I had those. Around that time period, there was a commercial. I think it was Standard Insurance or something in Texas. And it's so random, but in this commercial, the soldier shows up home after being deployed, and it's a female. She has short hair, and don't know the name of these dogs. This big dog comes out. It's as big as she is. Do you know?
I can look it up.
But it's almost like, it looked like a big horse. It's just a big dog, and it jumped on her, and they were rustling around in the driveway. And I don't know why that scene started to unfold for me in a dream. And then the dog and the girl who were wrestling on the ground, they kind of morphed together, rose up from the ground, turned, and appeared to me for the first time as a Blue Avian. Wow. And didn't utter a word, but just kind of looked at me, was doing its mouth, kind of that weird way I've described, and was doing this weird sign language. And I popped up out of that dream, and I was literally, what the fuck? What? Just, that happened, and then it kind of, unrolled from there, them popping up. And it was just every once in a while. They would pop up. It wasn't like every night or every other week. It was just sporadic.
And it wasn't like they were saying something, it was just showing themselves.
It felt like they were communicating with me, but
was it
consciously I was not able to understand, but on a different level, I think I was communicating with them. But consciously, I didn't understand what was going on because there was no sound.
Yeah.
But it was very obvious there was a communication going on.
Do you think it would have been just entirely subconscious? I think that's what dreams are.
It was
just entirely a
subconscious.
subconscious communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were working with my higher self. There was like a whole negotiation going on. I was told that before anybody has an experience with a positive ET being, fourth density or higher, those beings, through their higher selves, connect with us and our higher selves and basically get permission from the overbeing. Can I have communication? Yes or no? And if so, what type of communication? If the over self is like, no, they cannot have a visit from ETs right now because they will develop a Christ complex because of their ego distortions. They can't handle it, so no. But you can visit them in a dream and start seeding them in a way that's going to cause them to evolve and be able to, at some point, have a face-to-face, if they ever get to that point. But we have these higher beings, density beings, working with us all the time, but they're working with us through our higher self and working with us in concert.
I could share that it was after I did a day of fasting. It was maybe over a day of fasting that I recently had this really powerful experience where I felt like I was being communicated with on a very, very deep level. It was an amazing shift for me, and it just happened to me right after I had fasted and tried to really get into a very spiritual place. Fasted from all drugs and everything. I was just completely clean, and that's what it took for me to get to that place. Yeah. So I feel like that people should look forward to that kind of thing. It just really work on yourself, and that would definitely be, optimal.
Yeah, just do the work. You see the results.
So they were making themselves more obvious in the dreams, and then was there a point when you thought, okay, maybe this being was trying to talk to me. This is being talking to me right now.
It just became one of those weird, quirky things that happen every once in a while, And when it happened, I just kind of went with it as if it was just a very peculiar dream and just tried to experience it, It was a while before I, started realizing that, it was an actual communication. They were easing me into it. And because I had been in these programs and exposed to different ETs and all of that, none of them fit this description or category at all. So, I was questioning my sanity, like, what the heck is going on here, and I heard that Gonzalez went through a very similar process because they were communicating with him as well. And he is not as mystical as I am with ideas and open-minded. So he had a very difficult time in the beginning.
I see. And so when they first appeared in your living room, was it a reaction that obviously it was always them and you felt a connection to them because of it? Or did it feel more like this is a very different kind of experience with a different being?
It was a very different experience because I was always able to visit it in my mind as a probable dream, maybe something more. But when it appeared in my living room and my dog reacted the way she did, And then, she jerked real quick, looked up at it, and then slowly turned her head and looked at me. I could almost hear her say, "Do you see this?" And I looked at her, and then she just slid her head behind my back on the couch and just shook, And that's really most of what I remember from that experience, because it was so because Stacy was always like, if something happens, wake me up. If a sphere comes in the room or whatever. And I would shake her and try to wake her up, and she wouldn't. She was like delta waved out, And to have, even it being my dog, have the experience, it made it very real.
Mm-hmm. And so, did you feel any fear initially?
Shock, cognitive dissident, kind of trying to get a bearing on reality again. It's kind of like, you spin in a circle too long. Your mind, it's got to all kind of catch up, with reality. So it's a jarring experience.
Mm-hmm. And have there been any other beings that you've been in the presence of that were anything close to that?
Only being that I saw that I felt such a huge amount of compassion and emotional energy from a crazy strong aura was the feline being that was dead, but it still emanated, this energy. So one of them that's alive is probably very, very powerful.
At what point was this that you saw that?
It was on the research vessel once I was put into the group where they were sending people off planet as slaves and specimens. This was I guess there was a huge capture order on this type of being, and because they can teleport all around, and they had set some sort of a trap for it, like a electric web trap that captured it and killed it, and they were transporting the body.
Wow.
Back to whoever has this major bounty.
Do you feel like the research team had any theories as to why it felt that way, or did they do anything about it?
No, these people, half the people, this was a big part of the ship that was, it's modular, so it was changed into different types of things, but every once in a while it was used by this one group who we would pick up, and it would be used to transport specimens and all types of things for this secret program they had of trading live humans, all sorts of biological specimens to other star systems for technology and other biologicals from them.
Okay.
So it was in that environment. So a lot of the people that worked in it, that were like pushing the cages around, they were on something, or they were not, or they were mind controlled a lot, and some they were just kind of automatons, but they would do the work, go back and not really remember what they did. So it was kind of that type of feel.
So how did you stumble upon this?
It was, I accidentally said Ensign last time, but Petty Officer Wheeler. There was this girl that was in the beginning of this, the alliance that was going to expose everything. And this, would have been in the late 80s, early 90s on the ship, research vessel. She was social engineering people in different areas to get intel back. And she had socially engineered me and this engineer to get her into this area of the ship that was very secretive, and no one was allowed to even talk about it, to get her in to see what was in there. So we got her in. They went, and there were a bunch of pods stacked on each other all around, and then there was one that was off, or a few that were off to the side, and they were like, there were pods that were kind of looked like the torpedoes off of Star Trek, photon torpedo kind of pods. And her and the engineer, they told me to watch. So I was watching at the door, and they were messing with it, trying to get in. She needed the engineer to get in it. And he was messing around, and it opened. So I looked, I saw it had opened, and I saw this kind of smoke coming out. And then I looked back out, keeping watch. And then I turned, and it was vapor, and it was overtaking the whole room, and they both collapsed. And I turned to run out the door, and then I collapsed, and I came to in the infirmary. And they told me that her and the other person had died. I don't know if it was true or not. But after that, because I knew when they opened the pod, there were bodies in there that had like no eyebrows, no hair, naked bodies of human bodies in there that had been like filleted. And the vapor that came out, I guess, was what was helping preserve it.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, because I was an intuitive empath, and for other reasons, that just brought me into that program. So after that, I was brought into that slave trade and specimen depot.
I see. Well, thank you for taking one for the team to have to go through that so we could all hear about it.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah, because it feels like it was this. I mean, the fact that a woman who was like doing intelligence operations, counterintelligence, trying to
infiltration. And,
so it's like there's some kind of. It's almost like that mass consciousness wants to find out. It wants the catalyst.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's so fascinating that you were the one to see that. Yeah, that's so fantastic, or not fantastic if you look at it and how tragic it is. But it definitely helps us be more ready for what's about to happen with the revealing of the all the chaos in the government and how it's really controlled.
Yeah, what does apocalypse mean? It means the great revealing, and everything's just being revealed. Everyone's being revealed for what they really are, to each other and to themselves. It's a very uncomfortable time.
So we talked through about the first experience, and I'm sure we could during the show talk about what they talked about in the first meeting. And do you remember the second meeting? Was the second meeting life changing, or is it? You said in here that it's a lot of personal stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the personal stuff. Them, trying to. I was in really bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
I was a mess. I mean, a big time mess. PTSD, all sorts of medications. I mean, there was a period of them getting me off the medication. It was just a long process. That they had to be patient with.
They guided you off the medication?
But Anshar actually ended up being the ones that really pressed it.
And this was 2014, you think?
No, I didn't get off the medications until when? 20.
Oh, I see.
When I first started Cosmic Disclosure, I was on tons of medications.
Not until 2016.
So in 2014, there was the Mayan meeting, right? Where they were working on your subconscious, and then Stacy saw that one?
Was that 2014 or 13?
13 or
Might have been
14.
13. Yeah, I don't know.
It was 13 or 14.
So we were living with my parents.
Yeah, it just depends on, was it halfway into our time there or near the end?
Do you feel like this has kind of been like a tag team effort to work on Corey's
Yep.
emotions?
Yep, different layers,
So
different approaches.
do you feel like you have the deepest releases when you're with the Blue Avians? Or is the...
It's not necessarily when I'm with them, it's recovering afterwards. Each time I would have an experience, and ask Stacy, literally for 3 days, I wouldn't speak to anyone. I would stare at the wall and just process. Try to make sense, try to understand, try to revisit every aspect of it, And So that's where all the growth and expansion occurred.
How often were they meeting you at the beginning?
Sporadic. It's always been sporadic, always clusters, then a short period of time or a long ass period of time to where I like give up. There's no rhyme or reason or pattern.
Did it seem like
It's like they're waiting for mile markers. They come in, they tinker a little bit, and then they step back very patiently and watch. Maybe we need to guide. Oh, there we go. Let's guide him a little bit here. Then they'll sit back. Okay, he's doing it. Okay, he's going to need some help up here. All right, and then they come in. Then
so the Anshar are the ones running along you with the bottle of water. They're more close to your. Would you say that you can call on Kari and get guidance at any time?
Yeah, and they're more relatable.
Yeah, I was thinking running a mile with the mile marker thing. It's a really great way of looking at it because it makes sense based on what they say in the Law of One. That obviously they're so super cautious about everything that they're doing. That it's not just that they're hanging out. They have a very specific.
Some of the times it seems like they're so overly cautious that they're completely inactive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's like they're afraid to breathe.
Yeah.
They're, the breath coming out of their nose is going to cause the flutter of the butterfly to change, and change the whole butterfly effect.
Right. Exactly.
But it's the way. The more I learn about time and how consciousness and time and space are interacting, I understand why they're so paranoid. Because they become karmically they're trying to get the hell out of here. They want to get back to the one infinite creator and rejoin, the light. And they can't do that because they're karmically entangled with us and other beings for a number of reasons. And they need us to get past those entanglements so they can grow.
Yeah. I would say it's not a selfish thing because the higher density you are, the more you can help those who have been in any way related to you. So helping
That's why your higher self is helping you so much.
Yeah.
Because the more and more it gains the wisdom and experience, and the more compassion it has for itself in the past, so to speak, and then it's giving love and direction.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I could keep going in so many directions with initial encounters and.
What was this week 5?
I skipped to the timeline.
Okay.
I went through week 5. I was thinking could be just everything else about the secret space program and anything that seems very related, like how you felt like a Blue Avian when you were with the Draco. That maybe some things that we wouldn't want to emphasize, until we had enough groundwork laid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we also need to make it known that I'm not some special Blue Avian soul here that's some sort of savior, that there are millions and millions of different higher ascended beings that are here, and we're all here to do the work together, and none of us are more special. And if you have a true understanding of oneness, then you can't be a savior. You cannot be a great Messiah for someone, because if we're all one and you truly understand that, then ego is perspective. It's a point of view of different points of view of the one infinite creator. It changes your perspective, and it's hard to be. It's hard to live in an egotistical way once you fully embrace and understand oneness and how we are all the one infinite creator.
Yeah. There's been a part of me that has wondered if we have to be in fourth density to understand oneness more, but understanding oneness is clearly like a relative.
That is a part of fourth density. It is that full understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do think that it is possible for us to experience it to a larger degree here, and I really think love is what it is. Love is what it is when you have your heart open. That's the third density expression of understanding oneness.
Well, it's like Star Wars. There's 2 paths. There's love and fear, and all of our insecurities come from traumas. That's all fear, and those are the lower density vibrations that hold us down. Love causes us to expand and reach out.
So the first meeting, let's say, so how many meetings would you say you had before you were brought to the moon, to the Lunar Operations Command, to have the meeting where you're interpreting for the Blue Avian?
I can't remember right now. They all kind of blend in, but it was mostly the dreams and then, the physical encounter.
And so it wasn't many physical encounters in between they first had a physical encounter?
Well, there were many physical encounters after the first.
Okay. Yeah. So how many
they
after the first and before the time when you went to Lunar Operations Command?
I would have to go back and look at the transcripts because I reported all of the incidents and they were
All of them.
Yeah, pretty much. The times that I was picked up by a sphere in my room and taken out to meet them.
I've got them right here. The transcripts right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we go through more of these, I can find out if there was any that you've never talked about before, because I think you did clarify in here.
There were a lot of the ones where they visited me in dreams were of very personal natures about my spirituality or my emotional state or vibration. They were always trying to get me to raise my vibration and get into a resonant frequency that they could connect with.
Were they already beginning to explain the nature of the universe, or were they only focusing on your traumas and stuff like that?
I was seeing scenes of the nature of the universe. Before they had conversations, if you want to call it that, with me about the cosmic web, I had already understood part of it from being in the programs, but they gave me experience through these scenes and understanding. So they were imparting information to me, downloading.
Wow. So during these initial conferences between the sphere beings and the what would you call it, the Secret Space Program Alliance they were meeting with? Secret Space Program Alliance. And Secret Space Program Alliance was all different factions of the Secret Space Program?
Yeah, there were like 5 main factions of the Secret Space Program. There were people that had left duty, my brain's not working right now, gone AWOL, and taken equipment and intel with them and joined this ragtag group of people that were trying to fight against the Draco and the dark side, basically, and all the human trafficking and negative things that were going on that most of the people in the programs didn't know about because it was compartmentalized so much.
Do you think there's any chance there was like Air Force people there?
Air Force people where?
In that Secret Space Program Alliance?
Well, there are a lot of people that are pulled into these 20 impact programs. Most of them are military, so there were Air Force and all this type of people all around, but they weren't in Air Force uniforms or representing the Air Force.
I see what you mean.
But in the military industrial complex secret area of the Secret Space Program where they use lower technologies, that's it's
Whole other level.
Yeah.
I really have wondered about the testimony of Bill Deagle, who said that he was briefed on when he was working underground Tree for Air Force. He was briefed on the fact that the Air Force felt they could go from here to Mars. They had bases on the moon and Mars.
Well, before Space Force, it was Space Command and all of that. It was the Air Force. Yeah, the Air Force, and then the Navy had a different program that was more advanced and able to go further into space.
You alluded to the fact that there were multiple meetings between the Sphere Beings and the Secret Space Program Alliance, but how many of them did you go to and act as interpreter for?
I acted as, I believe, just that one.
Just the one.
Gonzalez was doing most of the relaying of information.
Oh, I see.
a lot of it. And that's why in the beginning, when they told Gonzalez, he didn't remember me or anything. They said, we need you to find this person. He's going to come up and address the committee that was there on the Lunar Operation Command. And he was put off because he thought it should have been him. And in the beginning, we had a little bit of attitude issues because he wasn't happy because I was some, civilian person. No one.
And this is the point of you being selected.
Yeah.
And then people have to understand. It's so funny. It's like everyone wants to look down on Corey Goode until but your testimony is that's the entire testimony. Is people looking down.
There's like, why is Corey Goode qualified to meet God Almighty or whatever? I'm just like, God, you guys are not getting the point. We're all one. So what does it matter?
Yeah, exactly.
Each of our experiences are just as important and sacred to the one infinite Creator.
Yeah.
Because it is the one infinite Creator's experience ultimately.
People have to learn to love Donald Trump if they want to get over their baggage.
A lot of division going on.
Yeah. So maybe I should just really quick go through, make sure I understand all the times in general that I think that you met the Blue Avians. I'll just narrow into that right now for the questioning. When did they give you the Blue Avian message? Was there a specific meeting where they're like, it's important for you to share this message?
Yeah, it was during the time when I was like, in the beginning, when I was physically first meeting them up in this crazy environment that I was trying to take in, up in the big blue spheres. I was questioning them, testing the spirits as I was taught because of my religion, and they had passed that. And I was asking them about why they work with Christians and all of that. And then the Blue Avian message, I was basically, why me? I'm not a good public speaker. I stammer. I am not confident in front of people at all. I hate it. I'm the person that's always quiet. I don't talk with people very much. Why? And it was all part of that conversation when they were letting me know, why they were here and what their message was.
It's amazing.
Because you're alien, right? What is your message? Why?
Uh-huh.
And they were just like, oh, you don't understand yet.
Uh-huh.
Is that when we lived in the duplex?
I think someone lived in a duplex, in Plano, Texas.
Yeah. Crazy,
So is it possible we're taking the Blue Avian message as too special, or is it really the distillation of everything?
Yeah, the whole point is, why are we making the Blue Avian message so special?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Why are we? The main thing they did not want to happen, which did, was for people to start reaching out to them and praying to them and asking them for help. And their whole message was for us to help ourselves, to go within, and it just defeats the purpose. But we always succumb to our programming of wanting to look out for help, for salvation.
Yeah.
When the only salvation you're going to get is from within, really, and the salvation that you get from within is from without. Ultimately, it is the one infinite, Creator's spark.
So the Blue Avian message was almost just kind of a side part of your conversation that just.
So that was something they wanted delivered.
Yeah, they wanted.
And it has the potential to bridge together all religions, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just like, here's the same message that you all share.
True.
So at one point they told you about the spheres. Was that the nature of the energy and the?
Yeah, I asked them about the blue spheres, why all of these different sized spheres were littering our solar system. It looked like an invasion. And then they described that those spheres were here to attenuate the energy coming from the sun, because if they didn't, the event would occur too soon and we wouldn't be ready. And the harvest, I guess they didn't use the word harvest, but it would be too small.
Yeah, I think I remember there was one of the articles was largely about that particular meeting, and then there was also, I think you said that even the Secret Space Program Alliance had asked about the spheres.
Yeah. None of them could wrap their heads around the fact that the spheres were not conveyances. They weren't like energetic bubbles created for them to manipulate. They were actual higher density beings. They were a consciousness. And I heard someone say that they're spheres because of their lack of distortion. They appear as spheres because of their lack of distortion. I don't know what to make of that. But the spheres themselves are, they're higher density beings than even the Blue Avians. They're basically almost God. You know, they're energy of the one infinite creator.
Yeah, and the concept of the sphere in the archetypes images in the Law of One is discussed as being a very significant, like pure magic kind of thing. Okay, so would you say like
I think they also described the spheres as the consciousness and the energy of creation.
Yeah, that's a trippy thing. And another thing I'm going to want to bring up is the fact that people, it's almost like it's a question people aren't asking, which is that the ninth density is not described in the Law of One at all. But they do describe that there are beings coming here from higher densities beyond the eighth, that they have no capacity to adequately describe how this is possible, that these beings are coming here from other universes. Yeah. So
I've gotten into conversations with David Wilcock about that. He's like, it only goes up to this, to 8 or whatever. These beings were telling me that they kind of showed it to me like musical scales, that there were musical scales stacked on musical scales. So there were like densities,
levels within densities.
Yeah, almost like Russian nesting dolls or something. It was hard for me it's very hard to understand for me.
Yeah, the octaves.
Yeah.
The octaves. Yeah, that's what they described it as.
Yeah.
It's in the book too.
Yeah. So
that's why David and I made such a good team. He knew the Law of One so well,
yeah.
And I was prejudiced against it in the beginning.
Yeah.
But the information is the same for these people.
It's funny to say that, I've had some, the Law of One has helped me validate your testimony, but psychedelics plus reading the Law of One helped me understand it even more.
Yeah,
because
it's like brings you're in a different dimension.
Yeah. You're having a whole bunch of meetings all at once before or around the time of when you met with the Council of 300, or what was it?
Yeah.
Council of 100 now?
It's 200.
What is it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the committee or yeah, it was when I was pulled into that like French castle or whatever. Yeah, that was that group. That was group. That they were the ones that were connected to the Draco meeting that I had. They were the ones that Draco were willing to give up.
Interesting.
One of the groups.
So
they had a representative that was there during the Draco meeting, but he.
Do you think that your presence was seen as leveraged by the Blue Avians or something because of the fact that the only thing that could be taken from the Draco is their taken from the elite who think they rule the planet is the Draco connection.
Yeah.
By losing that Draco connection, then they, I assume they're screwed in some way.
Yeah, they're more screwed like when this energy burst happens
I see.
and it destroys all the nanites that control the reptilians and control a lot of human elites that are going along the technological ascension path. But they don't need the Draco to have the connection to this evil entity.
I see.
This evil entity's, able to connect with them energetically through these nanites.
I
now,
see. So the elite probably have the nanites in them.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. Do you think that makes them practically just like reptilians in the way that they act, the psychopaths?
It doesn't make them that way. These people were already that way. They've been raised in this, what they call this old religion, where they're basically tortured since they're children, and they become psychopaths. And it's just a whole different, they're almost like a different species, the way they think.
So do you think that the nanites have been around for a long time in the elite circles, or a very long time?
That's difficult to say, the way these beings jump around in time. The elites, I think mostly, I think that's more of a current phenomenon, because the only connections to reptilians of the elites in the ancient past, they were through the religious sects. And priest castes would have certain traditions that they would keep, and they would be able to interact with these beings. And the rest of humanity was just oblivious. But now there are so many elites that have, the consciousness level at that era in the ancient times, they wouldn't be able to have the consciousness to understand the concepts that the elite do in this time era. So their consciousness is more expanded, they have more knowledge of technology, and they've been introduced through their, if you want to call it, spiritual teachings, but also the technology and the beings that they interact with on a different level. Humans interact with reptilians on a different level now than we did 1,000 years ago. They came in and it was a dragon, and their level of consciousness then. Now are people like, oh, this is an alien. It's more advanced than us, but it's they have more of a concept of what they're interacting with.
It certainly is amazing to wrap it up with the, somehow we could wrap it up with the final meeting at the galactic, or the Council of Saturn, which I assume was just one meeting, and that was where the only time you've seen the new Guardians.
Yes, that was at the one at Jupiter.
Okay, that was a different one.
Yeah, that was at Jupiter. There was a anomaly just like off Saturn.
Okay.
And this had a base that was identical to the one that the Super Federation occurs at. This is the one where the Sentinels were present. And then we had groups from the local 52 star cluster representatives, Mika's people, and then the Anshar were there. It was this big, exciting thing. And then the Blue Avians, the triangle-headed beings, appeared. And then it was kind of like tongues of fire or light all around the room in these different colors that came in and bathed the room. And then the new Guardians appeared, and it was sort of a handoff. And then it was after that the Blue Avians faded out of working directly in our reality.
And you continue to have dreams occasionally.
Yes.
And it's always a personal thing?
Yeah, it has been. And some of it's been personal things that relate to the greater picture, like you need to be, warnings.
Do you feel like that's, has it been very random like it was originally?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Clusters, and then just very random.
All right. Yeah. I guess that was pretty good discussion.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for watching this video. If you want to know more about the projects that we're working on, like the graphic novel, the Ascension Chronicles, Spheres of Influence, you can tune in to disclosurecomics.com. And for information on our courses, you can go to ascensionworks.tv. Please make sure you subscribe right now. I've got more content coming out soon. Today, I just shot a video with Dr. Sala where we discussed the top 10 disclosure news releases of 2020. And we had a lot of fun in that video, and I'll be bringing that to you around New Year's. So thank you again for tuning in, and Happy New Year.
Thank you for watching the Sphere Being Alliance channel. Make sure you click on subscribe and smash the bell to make sure you're receiving all the new content from the Sphere Being Alliance YouTube channel.